Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm excited to welcome you to our cybersecurity awareness training. Today's session is all about protecting you and your data, an essential topic in our digital world. I'm Amir Iqbal, your Information Security Officer, and I'll be guiding you through this important presentation. We'll cover key cybersecurity tips, best practices, and how to stay safe online, especially when traveling. So, let's get started and make this a valuable and engaging session for everyone. Let's take a moment to look at the overview of what we'll be covering today. First, we'll explore why security awareness is so crucial for everyone, whether you're working from the office or remotely. Then, we'll dive into practical steps like backing up your data. Remember, backup, 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 because it's the best way to protect yourself against data loss. We'll also discuss the importance of patching all of your devices regularly to keep them secure from vulnerabilities. Managing your passwords effectively is another key point, and I'll show you how to do that without hassle. We'll look at two-factor authentication, which adds an extra layer of security beyond just a password. It's a simple step that makes a big difference. We'll also cover what to do when things go wrong. Knowing how to respond quickly can save you a lot of trouble. Moving on, we'll go through internet safety practices, email security, and common scams like phone scams that you should be aware of. Data protection and privacy are more important than ever, so we'll discuss how to safeguard your personal and organizational information. Finally, I'll point you to where you can find official InfoSec policies, and we'll touch on best practices for staying secure when traveling. All these points tie together to create a comprehensive approach to cybersecurity, because staying informed and prepared is the best defense we have. Now, let's talk about why cybersecurity awareness is especially important when we're traveling. Traveling often means using unfamiliar networks, like public Wi-Fi in airports or coffee shops, which can be less secure. This makes it easier for cybercriminals to intercept sensitive information or launch attacks. So, being aware of these risks is crucial to protect your personal data and devices. It's also important to remember that travel can sometimes distract us, making us less cautious online. We might forget to lock our devices or avoid suspicious links, increasing our vulnerability. By staying alert and practicing good cybersecurity habits, we can reduce these risks significantly. Overall, whether you're traveling for business or leisure, understanding the cybersecurity challenges you face on the go helps us stay safe and secure in this interconnected world. This awareness supports the broader goal of our presentation, building a resilient security mindset everywhere we go. So, why is awareness training such a crucial part of our cybersecurity strategy? Well, the reality is that technology alone simply cannot protect us from every threat out there. No matter how advanced our systems are, attackers often target the weakest link, and that's usually people. Whether it's falling for a phishing email or sharing too much information, human error can open the door for cybercriminals. That's why cybersecurity awareness is so important for everyone. It's not just for IT teams or security professionals. It's for employees at work, yes, but also for management, parents, children, and really, everyone. The goal is to create a culture of vigilance and good habits that extend beyond the workplace. And here's a key point to remember. Many of the tips and practices that keep you safe at work also apply at home. Whether it's recognizing suspicious emails or safeguarding your personal devices, the principles are the same. Now, when we think about traveling, awareness becomes even more vital. Using public Wi-Fi, connecting to unfamiliar networks, or handling sensitive information on the go can introduce new risks. So, staying alert and applying the right safety measures while traveling is just as important as doing so at your desk. Ultimately, cybersecurity awareness isn't just about avoiding threats. It's about empowering everyone to be a part of the defense. Because when we all stay informed and cautious, we strengthen our overall security wherever we are. Actually, many people believe that attackers are only after big targets or high-profile individuals. But the truth is, that's not quite right. The slide says, "But an attacker is not interested in me." But in reality, they are very interested in **you. Let's break down why. First, credit card, and financial data, this is what fraudsters are after. They want your money, your financial information, and they often target everyday users because it's easier to exploit. Next, medical data. That's highly sensitive, private information that can be used for identity theft or blackmail. Attackers see this as valuable because it's personal and often not well protected. Then there are computer resources. This is about attacking others, using your computer to launch attacks, send spam, or host malicious content. So your device can become part of a bigger problem without you even realizing. And lastly, user or email credentials. These are the keys to your digital life. Attackers want to steal your identity, access your accounts, and cause all sorts of chaos. Now the slide says, wrong, you are exactly what an attacker wants. Because in fact, attackers target individuals like you and me. Whether we're traveling or just online, our personal data and devices are valuable. So it's crucial to understand that everyone is a potential target. This links directly to the overall theme of the presentation. Awareness and protection are essential in today's digital world. Remember, cybersecurity isn't just about protecting big organizations. It's about safeguarding ourselves every day. All right, now that we've covered the basics, let's talk about how to protect yourself when you're traveling. Traveling can be exciting, but it also opens up new vulnerabilities if you're not careful with your information security. The key points here are to be mindful of your digital footprint and take proactive steps to safeguard your data. For example, avoid using public Wi-Fi for sensitive activities like banking or accessing work emails, since these networks can be less secure and more susceptible to hacking. Instead, consider using a trusted virtual private network, or VPN, which encrypts your internet traffic and makes it much harder for anyone to intercept your data. Also, make sure your devices are updated with the latest security patches and software updates before you travel. This helps close any vulnerabilities that could be exploited. Be cautious about sharing personal or travel details on social media, because oversharing can give cybercriminals clues about when you're away and what valuables you might have. And finally, always enable two-factor authentication whenever possible, because even if someone gets hold of your password, this extra layer of security can prevent unauthorized access. Remember, traveling is about exploring and enjoying, but staying vigilant about your digital security ensures that your trip remains safe and trouble-free. Updates are absolutely essential when it comes to maintaining security. What might have been secure yesterday may not be secure today. That's because new vulnerabilities are discovered all the time. Every day, security researchers find fresh weaknesses in software that hackers can exploit. And speaking of threats, over 321,000 new pieces of malware, including viruses and ransomware, are released every single day. That's an astonishing number, highlighting just how rapidly the threat landscape is evolving. It really drives home the point that security isn't a set-it-and-forget-it kind of thing. It requires ongoing effort, regular updates, and vigilance. Nothing stays secure forever, especially in today's fast-moving digital world. And this is particularly important for those of us in information security and those who travel frequently. When you're on the move, your devices and networks are even more vulnerable to these ever-changing threats. So, staying current with updates isn't just a best practice. It's a vital part of protecting your data and your organization. All about passwords, this slide is really about understanding their importance, especially when we're traveling. When we're on the move, it's easy to forget how crucial strong passwords are to protect our personal information. Passwords act as the first line of defense against cyber threats. They're like the locks on your door. If they're weak or reused across multiple accounts, it's like leaving your door unlocked. So, when traveling, it's especially important to be mindful of your passwords. Use unique, strong passwords for different accounts, and consider tools like password managers to keep track of them securely. Remember, no matter where you are in the world, your digital security is just as important as your physical safety. Strong passwords are a simple but effective way to keep your information safe, especially when you're away from your usual secure environment. Now, let's talk about what makes a password truly strong. Complexity is key. That means using a mix of upper and lower case letters, numbers, and special characters. This combination makes it much harder for someone to guess or crack your password. Next, longer passwords are definitely better. Aim for at least 10 characters. The longer your password, the more difficult it becomes for attackers to break it through brute force methods. It's also important to avoid common words or easily guessable sequences, like password or 123,456. Using these makes your accounts vulnerable. Instead, try to create unique passwords for each of your accounts. This way, if one gets compromised, the others stay safe. Consider using passphrases, a sequence of words or a sentence. They're easier to remember but still very secure. For example, a sentence like, "My first job was in Dubai as a senior accountant in 2014, can be turned into a strong password, such as MFJ Widasa at 2014. And a final tip, avoid including personal information like birthdays, names, or addresses in your passwords. That information can often be guessed or found online, so it's best to keep it out. Remember, strong passwords are a fundamental part of protecting your digital life, especially when you're traveling or accessing sensitive information. Now, let's talk about managing your passwords effectively. One of the most important things is to keep your passwords in a secure location. This might sound obvious, but it's crucial to avoid the temptation of writing them down on paper or sticking sticky notes somewhere visible. These methods can easily be lost or accessed by others, putting your accounts at risk. Similarly, never store passwords in plain text on your computer, whether that's in Word documents, Excel sheets, Notepad files, or any other simple text formats. These are vulnerable to malware or unauthorized access, which can compromise your entire digital security. Instead, I strongly recommend using a password manager, sometimes called a vault. These tools securely store all your passwords in one encrypted location, making it easier to manage complex, unique passwords for each account without the risk of forgetting them. Some popular options include Bitwarden, 1Password, LastPass, and KeePass. You might also wonder about using Chrome or other browsers to save passwords. While convenient, they're not as secure as dedicated password managers, especially if your device gets compromised. And when it comes to information security, especially if you're traveling, it's even more important to be cautious. Always ensure your passwords are stored securely and avoid exposing them in insecure environments. Remember, managing your passwords responsibly is a key piece of the overall security puzzle we've been discussing. It's about making it easier for you to stay protected without sacrificing convenience or safety. Now let's take a look at slide 11, which covers the top 10 most common passwords. These are the passwords that people tend to use most frequently, and unfortunately, that makes them the easiest for hackers to guess. The source for this list is NordPass, a reputable password security provider, so these are based on real-world data. Here's the key point. If you're using any of these passwords, you need to change them immediately. They're so common that anyone trying to access accounts could guess them in seconds. This is especially important for those of us in the UAE, or when we're traveling globally, because the risks of account compromise can increase when you're in unfamiliar environments. Remember, strong, unique passwords are your first line of defense, so take a moment to update any of these if they're on your list. Protecting your personal and professional information should always be a priority, no matter where you are. Let's take a look at this chart showing how password length impacts the time it takes for an attacker to brute force a password. As you can see, the source here is Hive Systems, which is well regarded in the cybersecurity space. The key idea is that longer passwords generally mean more security because they take significantly more time to crack. The chart uses a color-coded scale, where yellow indicates passwords that are somewhat vulnerable, and green shows passwords that are much more secure. So if your password is in the yellow zone, an attacker might be able to crack it relatively quickly, think minutes or hours. But if you're in the green, your password could take years, even centuries, to break through with brute force. This brings us to an important point for anyone traveling or working remotely. Your password strength really matters. A strong, lengthy password can be your best defense against unauthorized access, especially when you're using potentially insecure networks. In the context of our overall message today, remember, the longer and more complex your password, the better protected you are. It's a simple but powerful step in safeguarding your digital identity, whether you're in the office or on the go. Now, let's take a closer look at two-factor authentication, or 2FA, which is a crucial step in securing your accounts. Essentially, 2FA means that after entering your username and password, you're asked to provide a second form of verification. This could be a one-time code sent to your phone via SMS, a phone call, or generated through authentication apps like Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator. Some systems even have built-in password managers that can help streamline this process. You might wonder, what exactly is 2FA? It's sometimes called multi-factor authentication, or MFA, and it's really about adding that extra layer of security beyond just a username and password. Think of it as a second proof that you are who you say you are. Most of these verification methods are out-of-band, meaning the second factor is transmitted via a different channel than your initial login, like receiving a code through SMS or a phone call. Other options include email or a prompt that pops up on your phone. However, it's important to note that some methods, like email or phone pop-ups, tend to be less secure than dedicated authentication apps. Research from the Microsoft tech community shows that using MFA can reduce the risk of account compromise by a staggering 99.9%. So, adopting 2FA isn't just an extra step, it's a significant safeguard. Throughout this presentation, we're emphasizing the importance of layered security, and 2FA is one of the most effective tools in that arsenal. It's about making it much harder for someone to gain unauthorized access, even if they've stolen your password. All right, let's dive into this slide. Here, we're focusing on some key security tools and considerations, starting with password managers and two-factor authentication, often called 2FA. These are essential for strengthening your online security, especially when you're traveling or accessing sensitive information on the go. Password managers are a game changer because they help you generate, store, and manage strong, unique passwords for all your accounts without having to remember each one. Instead of reusing passwords or choosing simple ones, a password manager does the heavy lifting, keeping your credentials safe and organized. Now, 2FA or two-factor authentication adds an extra layer of security. Even if someone manages to steal your password, they'd still need that second piece, like a code sent to your phone or generated by an app, to access your account. It's like adding a second lock to your digital door. The link provided gives you more resources and tools on this topic, so I encourage you to check it out. When we think about traveling, security becomes even more critical because we're often connecting to public Wi-Fi or using unfamiliar devices. Using a password manager and enabling 2FA helps protect your data and accounts from potential threats, no matter where you are. Overall, incorporating these tools into your security routine is a smart move. It's about making it harder for cybercriminals to get in, especially when you're on the move. So remember, strong passwords, stored securely, combined with 2FA, are key to keeping your digital life safe wherever your travels take you. Now, let's talk about how to spot a malicious link, especially when you're traveling or using unfamiliar networks. First off, always be cautious of links that seem out of place or unexpected. If you receive a message or email urging you to click a link that doesn't quite look right, perhaps it has misspelled words, strange domains, or suspicious characters, those are red flags. It's also important to hover over the link before clicking. This allows you to see the actual URL behind the link. If the address looks unfamiliar or doesn't match the official website, it's best to avoid clicking. Remember, malicious links often masquerade as legitimate sites to trick you into providing sensitive information or downloading malware. Another key point is to be wary of links in messages from unknown sources or even in emails from trusted contacts, if the message seems out of context. Cybercriminals can compromise accounts or spoof identities to send malicious links. And finally, when traveling, avoid clicking on links in public Wi-Fi networks or untrusted devices. Always verify the source, and when in doubt, go directly to the website by typing the URL yourself rather than clicking on a link. Being vigilant about these signs can help you stay protected from malicious links, no matter where you are. Now let's look at some common red flags that can help you spot easy-to-recognize scams. First, an unknown domain is a big red flag. If you receive an email from a website or sender you've never heard of, it's worth being cautious. Next, a generic name or vague sender information can also be suspicious. Scammers often use broad, nonspecific names to cast a wide net. Then, pay attention to the tone of the email. If it feels unusual, overly urgent, or unprofessional, that's a sign something might be off. These subtle clues can help you identify potential scams before you fall victim. Remember, in the context of InfoSec and traveling, being vigilant about these signs is especially important. Cyber threats don't take vacations, and scammers often leverage travel-related scenarios to trick us. So always stay alert for these red flags. It's your first line of defense. Let's look at this example of a suspicious text message. One of the first red flags to watch out for is if the message asks for your name or other personal details. That's a common tactic to gather information you might not realize they're collecting. Next, if the message says your number is okay or asks for confirmation, it could be a way for scammers to verify your contact details. Then consider the expected reply. If it feels out of place, or if you weren't expecting the message at all, that's a warning sign. Often, these messages will ask you to declare sensitive information, like passwords or account numbers, which should never be shared through SMS. Another common tactic is invoking fear or urgency, threatening consequences if you don't act quickly. And sometimes, they'll try to get you to click on a link, which can lead to phishing sites or malware. Throughout this, it's important to stay alert. Recognizing these red flags can help protect you, especially when traveling or handling sensitive information. Always question unexpected messages and verify their authenticity before responding or clicking any links. All right, let's talk about why hovering before clicking is so important. You might have noticed that links often appear as blue text, but don't be fooled, this can be deceiving. The visible URL isn't always the true destination. Sometimes, the link could be pointing to a completely different site, especially if it's a foreign domain like UK, CN, or RU. These domains can be a red flag, indicating potential scams or malicious sites. Additionally, some URLs use numbers instead of letters, which makes them look suspicious. For example, a URL like 192.168.11 isn't a typical website. It's an IP address used for local networks, and clicking blindly could lead you somewhere you don't want to go. So the key message here is, don't trust links blindly. Always hover over them first to see where they actually lead. Now, this raises an important question. What about mobile or tablets? Those devices don't have a hover function like desktops do. Instead, you use a long press, holding your finger on the link for a second or two. That way, you can see the URL preview the same way. And if you have any doubts about a link, whether on desktop or mobile, the safest bet is, don't click it. Instead, type the URL directly into your browser if you need to visit that site or verify it through a trusted source. Remember, whether you're working or traveling, staying cautious with links is crucial for your security. Always hover or long press to check before you click. Stay safe out there. Now, let's talk about shortened or obfuscated links. You might have noticed that instead of sharing a long, unwieldy URL, people often use tools like bit.ly or tinyURL to condense the link down to just about 15 characters. This makes sharing much cleaner and easier, especially in texts or social media. However, while these shortened links are incredibly common and helpful, they also come with risks. Criminals often abuse them to hide malicious websites, making it harder for users to recognize dangerous links. That's why it's important to be cautious. If you're unsure about a shortened link, you can use a link expander like www.linkexpander.com to see the full URL before clicking. In the context of information security and traveling, this is particularly relevant. When you're on the go, quick links are convenient, but they can also be disguising something harmful. So always verify and be vigilant to stay safe online. Now let's walk through the 4 key steps to determine if a link is safe. First, verify. Think about whether you were actually expecting that link. Not just in your email, but also if it came through social media, SMS or iMessage, or even platforms like Zoom, Teams, or Slack. If it's unexpected, be cautious. Second, hover. Take a moment to hover your mouse over the link without clicking. This way, you can see if the URL matches what it claims to be and whether it leads where it should. Third, do the sniff test. Ask yourself, do I recognize this site? Does it feel familiar or trustworthy? If anything seems off or unfamiliar, be skeptical. And finally, click. Only after passing the previous 3 tests should you consider clicking. Even then, stay vigilant, use caution. Remember the rule, when in doubt, throw it out. It's all about protecting yourself from potential threats and staying safe online. These steps might seem simple, but they're powerful tools in your security toolkit. Now, let's talk about a topic that's increasingly relevant: using your phone securely while traveling. When you're on the go, it's easy to let your guard down, but that can open you up to security risks. One key point is to be cautious about connecting to public Wi-Fi networks. These networks are often unsecured, making it easier for cybercriminals to intercept your data. It's a good idea to use a virtual private network, or VPN, whenever you're on a public network. This encrypts your internet traffic and adds a layer of protection. Also, be mindful of the information you share or access while traveling. Avoid logging into sensitive accounts or conducting banking transactions on public Wi-Fi. Another important tip is to keep your device's security features up to date. This includes your operating system and apps. Updates often include patches for security vulnerabilities that could be exploited by attackers. And finally, always be vigilant about phishing attempts, which can come through text messages or emails. Scammers may pretend to be legitimate organizations or even local authorities, trying to trick you into revealing personal information. Remember, never click on suspicious links or share sensitive data unless you're absolutely sure of the source. By staying aware and taking these precautions, you can enjoy your travels without compromising your personal or financial security. Let's talk about phone scams and how they fit into the bigger picture of social engineering. Essentially, social engineering is when someone manipulates you into giving up your sensitive information, things like your passwords, bank details, or personal data, by pretending to be someone trustworthy. Common targets include banks and credit card companies, as scammers often pose as representatives from these institutions to gain access. They also target medical and insurance providers, trying to trick you into revealing private info. The main goal here is to access your sensitive information, which scammers can then use for identity theft or financial fraud. One key point to remember is that phone numbers can be easily spoofed. That means a caller can pretend to be anyone they want, making it seem like they're calling from a legitimate organization. So, if you get a call asking for verification, it's best to hang up and then call back using a published, official number. Never rely solely on the number the caller provides. There are also other common phone scams to watch out for. For example, the grandparent scam, where scammers pose as a relative in trouble and ask for money. Or tech support scams, where they claim to be from companies like Microsoft, Apple, or Dell. Remember, legitimate companies will never contact you out of the blue to fix a problem. Always be cautious and verify independently. And when it comes to InfoSec and traveling, it's especially important to stay vigilant. Scammers may target travelers with various schemes, so always be mindful of who you're talking to and avoid giving out sensitive information over the phone unless you're sure of the caller's identity. Being aware of these tactics helps protect your personal info and keeps you safe in today's digital world. Now, let's take a closer look at this example of a phone scam. You can see how the scammer creates a sense of urgency, making it seem like a crisis that needs immediate action. They often include confusing or technical language to throw you off and make it harder to think clearly. In this particular case, they claim to be from Microsoft, saying they've been trying to contact you and that your license will be disconnected within 48 hours because your IP address has been compromised. They then instruct you to press 1 to get connected, aiming to trick you into revealing personal information or giving access to your device. The key red flags here are the urgent tone, the confusing technical details, and the unusual request to press a button to resolve a supposed issue. This example highlights an important point. Despite all our technical safeguards, nothing replaces awareness. Knowing what these scams look like is crucial to protecting ourselves. And of course, if you're traveling or using your device in different locations, be extra cautious, because scammers often exploit these situations. Remember, security isn't just about technology. It's about staying alert and questioning suspicious calls like this. When it comes to data protection and privacy, one important aspect we often overlook is how it applies when we're traveling for work or leisure. Traveling can introduce unique security challenges, especially when using public Wi-Fi or unfamiliar devices. It's crucial to remember that our personal information and corporate data are vulnerable in these environments. For example, always connect to trusted networks and avoid public Wi-Fi for sensitive activities unless you're using a secure VPN. This encrypts your connection and helps protect your data from potential eavesdroppers. Additionally, be cautious with the devices you carry. Ensure they are secured with strong passwords and, if possible, multi-factor authentication. Another key point is being aware of data privacy regulations that might differ across regions. When traveling internationally, you may encounter different laws about data collection and storage, and it's important to stay compliant. Ultimately, maintaining good security hygiene while traveling isn't just about protecting your own information. It's also about safeguarding company assets and maintaining trust. So, whether we're on a plane, in a hotel, or working from a cafe, being mindful of data protection practices helps us uphold our privacy commitments, no matter where we are in the world. Let's talk about internet privacy and why it matters so much today. You've probably heard the phrase, data is the new gold. And that's really true. Your data is incredibly valuable. If you're not paying for a service directly, then chances are you're the product being sold. Companies collect and analyze your data to predict your behavior and target you with ads or even set insurance rates. Think about how often we share information online. Are you oversharing without even realizing it? Things like fun online surveys or quizzes are often just data harvesting tools. And many social media platforms have default privacy settings that might not be as private as you think. When you post vacation photos or check in at locations, you're sharing your whereabouts. And that information isn't just for friends. It can also be seen by thieves or malicious actors. Would you be comfortable telling strangers on the street exactly where you are? Probably not. This is where information security, or InfoSec, comes into play, especially when traveling. Protecting your data and privacy isn't just about avoiding targeted ads. It's about safeguarding your personal safety and security. So, always be mindful of what you share online and consider how this information could be used by others. Now, let's explore what data protection really means. Essentially, it's about laws designed to safeguard our privacy rights. Yes, all of us. These laws aim to make sure that any personal information collected or used by organizations is handled responsibly and ethically. You see, when organizations have access to personal data, they have a responsibility to use it appropriately and securely. Personal data, in this context, refers to any information that can identify a natural person, what we call a data subject. Think of it as things like your name, your date of birth, your address, or even your email and phone number. Even your IP address or photographs can be considered personal data because they can help identify you. Now, some types of personal data are even more sensitive. These are called special categories of personal data. They require stricter protections because they reveal more personal details about us. For example, data about your racial or ethnic origin, political opinions, religious beliefs, or trade union membership. Also, information related to your health, sex life, or genetic and biometric data used for identification falls into this category. So, in the context of information security and travel, understanding what constitutes personal data and the importance of protecting it is crucial. It's about respecting individual privacy rights and ensuring that organizations handle data responsibly, especially when dealing with sensitive information. This is a key part of building trust and maintaining security in our digital world. Now, let's talk about the principles of data protection, especially when it comes to information security and traveling. When you're on the move, your data faces unique risks, so it's crucial to be extra vigilant. First, always prioritize confidentiality. Make sure sensitive information is only accessible to those who need it. This means using strong passwords, encrypting data when possible, and being cautious about what you share in public or unsecured Wi-Fi networks. Second, integrity is vital. You want to ensure that your data isn't altered or tampered with during your travels. Using secure connections and verifying the authenticity of sources helps protect against malicious interference. Third, availability matters. Your data should be accessible when you need it, but also protected from unauthorized access. This balance is key, especially when you're relying on cloud services or portable devices. And of course, always remember the importance of following your organization's data protection policies and best practices, no matter where you are. Traveling shouldn't mean compromising security, so adopting these principles helps safeguard your data and maintain trust. Overall, integrating these core concepts into your travel routines ensures you're protecting your information effectively, no matter the environment. Now, let's talk about data subject rights in the context of InfoSec and traveling. As data subjects, individuals have important rights that protect their personal information, whether they're at home or on the go. These rights include things like the right to access their data, the right to correct inaccuracies, and even the right to request deletion of their information. When we're traveling, these rights become especially critical because we often connect to different networks and use various devices, which can increase vulnerabilities. That's why it's essential to ensure that data protection measures are in place, no matter where we are. Being aware of these rights helps us maintain control over our personal data and ensures organizations are transparent and accountable. Overall, respecting data subject rights isn't just about compliance. It's about building trust and safeguarding privacy, no matter if you're in the office or on the road. Now, let's talk about data security when traveling. Traveling for work or leisure often means using different networks and devices, which can increase our vulnerability to cyber threats. It's crucial to be extra cautious in these situations. For example, public Wi-Fi networks are convenient, but they're often insecure, making it easier for hackers to intercept your data. So, I always recommend using a trusted virtual private network, or VPN, to encrypt your internet traffic and keep your information safe. Another key point is to be mindful of what you're sharing online, especially on social media, as revealing too much about your location or plans can be risky. It's also important to keep your devices updated with the latest security patches. These updates often fix vulnerabilities that hackers could exploit. And of course, avoid connecting to unknown or untrusted networks, and always use strong, unique passwords for your accounts. These small steps can make a big difference in protecting your data while you're on the move. Remember, maintaining good data security practices isn't just about protecting your information. It's about safeguarding your overall peace of mind during your travels. Now, let's talk about USB drives and other similar devices. It's really important to remember not to connect unknown or unauthorized media or devices to your systems. Even if a device looks harmless, it can pose serious security risks. Programs can actually run automatically when you plug in these devices without you even realizing it. Malicious software can launch silently, which is why caution is essential. Some common examples include USB or flash drives, SD and micro SD cards, CDs or DVDs, external hard drives, and often overlooked smartphones. Smartphones can be forgotten in this context, but they're just as capable of carrying and spreading malware. Especially when you're traveling, these risks can increase. You might be tempted to use a friend's device or a public computer, but every connection is a potential vulnerability. So the key takeaway is, always verify the source before connecting any media or device. This simple step helps protect not just your data, but the entire network you're working on. Being cautious with these devices is a crucial part of maintaining good information security, especially when you're on the move.